mics are coming up. The mics are up. Julia?
Yay!
As we get into show number 718, it's hard to believe we've gotten on the air on time. We had some technical problems with John, but we've got him on too. And we're delighted to have all of you with us for this show for Friday, the 18th of June, 2024. It's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff. A lot of folks already on here by via chat, via the Restream chat, and John is standing by very patiently. And he is standing by, even the lower thirds are working, John, in Weymouth. And we're going to bring him on as a guest host for this entire show. Once we get through here with the normal intro, thanks to the 12-meter class, the 12-meter yacht club, Gary Jobson, and all. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. As I said, action-packed. Not only do we have a live guest in the esteemed Jon Emmett, live from Weymouth, but he didn't have time to shave because of the technical problem. So I already give you an excuse. Any of you who think that Gillette is sponsoring this, they are not. Right, John? There he is. I better turn your mic up. Now your mic's up.
And Alistair will probably be pleased I'm wearing this T-shirt as well, because I didn't also get a chance to shower or shave before coming on air. But it was a very good event. So. And
of course, we're also going to talk about the dismasting, catastrophic wingmast failure in Barcelona of Red Bull Alinghi Racing. And that's really got a lot of people scratching their heads, and we'll tell you why. We've got some one-heres on all of that, but let's get right to it because we're going to bring John in. Normally, we bring him in for a video report on each of our shows, but we are bringing him in live today from Weymouth for the Coaching Corner, a live version of it. John, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's really nice to be here. In fact, it was quite strange not checking weather forecasts for weather windows to do the report.
You had the day off, sort of.
Sort of.
Well, it's funny. It got to about 8:30 p.m. my time very quickly, so I don't know about that, but I'm really happy to answer any questions you have, because one of the things I really love about the show is the interactive element. I think that's a really nice thing. Indeed.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people have got questions. I pitched this. I previewed it as the Olympics now and in the future. So we can talk about Olympics, but we're really bringing you on right at the top of the show as a co-host with us. Julia, turn up John, please. John, what's your miking there? We didn't have time to do a tech check with your mic. I'll push you up a bit. What, are you on your computer audio or what?
Yeah, I'm just on my laptop with my normal computer.
Okay,
audio.
slide in a little closer and a little less headspace. We don't have a proper mic on, John, over there. There, that's better. And give us a count to 5. We're doing a live tech check here, which we normally do in the pre-show.
Yeah.
As Tier Dion.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It looks better on.
A thief alive.
Yeah, it looks better on my meters, and we'll push it up even a touch more as we get into today's show with John. Julia.
Sir.
Julie Aarons, I see she's on. She says, "Hi, John, looking good even though you haven't had time to shave." Well, yes. There's no excuse.
That's proper promotion for you.
There's no excuse.
The previous 14 hours.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that too. But let me ask you both, what are we celebrating today? John, we'll start with you, since the Union Jack is in the flag. Do you recognize the hint, the clue?
I can honestly say I have no idea.
Julia, any idea what we're celebrating today?
Yes, it's Flag Day.
No, it is late. It is here in the USA, but internationally, what are we celebrating?
International Flag Day.
You've got her in a good mood, John. No, we're celebrating Falkland Islands Liberation Day.
Oh, maybe you
crikey,
are.
I should know that.
Crikey,
yeah.
when we've got an esteemed Brit on here as our guest, I thought we should. And you realize that on Tuesday, I was going to use this day in history, and I didn't. But on Tuesday, this day in history was Margaret Thatcher's third election. I think she's your only PM, Prime Minister, that's been elected 3 times, right? Successfully.
The Iron Lady.
The Iron Lady.
I mean, I actually remember the Falklands very well because it just was front cover of every single newspaper, and I was a paper boy at the time. That I've got an awful lot of Argentinian friends, and I was actually chatting to their team leader via WhatsApp yesterday. Come to think of it, yeah.
Well, you can wish them a happy Falkland Islands Liberation Day, which is every year on the 14th. That war lasted for what? 2 months or longer?
I just remember when there was a sinking of a ship. The Sun newspaper put something like "gotcha" or whatever.
Fritz
But
Mueller
yeah,
got it. For end of the Falklands War, I think he was the first one to get it. And Rick Banner was asking, and apropos, he and I did not coordinate this ahead of time, but he's asking, is there any other flag that has a sheep on it? And I don't know. Stingray says the effing Islands War was some impressive. How many sheep did they liberate? 100-day war, Peter Salwin down in Auckland is saying. Well, here are some of the deets. On April 2nd, 1982, Argentine military forces invaded the Falkland Islands, leading to the start of the Falklands War. 2 months later, on June 14th, 1982, the Argentine military occupation of the islands was brought to an end with an Argentine surrender and a British victory. The Falkland Islands Liberation Day is observed annually on the 14th of June in the Falkland Islands. And by the way, checking, as you probably both know, and all the FOSI know, the islands are populated largely by Welsh and Scottish folks. And, it's been a British, it was Spanish, it was British, it was
I've been
this.
there.
You have?
Yep.
Why am I not surprised? So
For a day.
But there's another reason why I think the Brits went to the rescue of their overseas territory, and I'll tell you that in a moment. We'll see if any of the FOSI get it in the comments in the meantime. On the day, Islanders attend, on this anniversary day, Islanders attend a Thanksgiving service at Christchurch Cathedral, lay wreaths at the Liberation Memorial, and go to a military parade in the capital city of Stanley. Thierry de Jong says he's been there. Peter Selwyn, who's a Kiwi, was in the Royal Navy at the time, but did not go to the FIs. And that's why he does know about it. But I'll give you another thing. Speaking of the flag, and again, Bannero and I did not coordinate this. Do you see what that crest is that's on their flag, Julia?
Yeah.
We dedicate this to you because at the bottom it says, "Desire the right."
Aha.
And that's in honor of your political leanings.
Good.
But that's not why it says "desire the right," okay?
Mm-hmm.
The colors and objects on the coat of arms carry cultural, political, and regional meanings, obviously. The ship from the Tudor period represents the Desire. That was the name of the vessel in which John Davis, Captain John Davis, is reputed to have sighted the Falkland Islands in
1592.
way back, 1592. The ram epitomizes sheep farming, which historically, not now, but was historically the principal industry of the islands, together with the production of wool, hence the Kiwis, a competition with the Kiwis probably. The importance of these industries declined after the establishment of, get this, a 150-mile, 240-kilometer fishery zone around the territory, which was announced in October 86 and took effect February the following year. The tussock grass that the ram is standing on evokes the native vegetation of the Falklands. The motto on a ribbon scroll under the escutcheon, "Desire the right," supposedly it alludes to the name of the aforementioned ship, but the truth is, Julia,
Yes.
and I knew you'd like this, there is a political party in the Falklands.
Called the Sheeps.
Why, you're in a good mood today. That's because I fixed you an espresso instead of an iced coffee this morning.
I think that may be
You're
true.
fired up. No, it's a political party called Desire the Right.
Oh, well, I think that's perfectly good.
I thought you'd like that.
Yes.
So we did that in your honor.
Thank you.
2023. Here's the real reason why the Brits went back and rescued their island. Lady Thatcher.
Rick Banner has a good point.
What's his
You've
point?
got to be kidding. Where are his horns?
His horns. But the point here is that the Falklands, believe it or not, John, I don't know, did you know that the Falklands has the 10th highest GDP per capita of every country, territory in the world? It has because the fishing business, which they protect now, is so strong, they have the 10th highest per capita GDP in the world. Okay, not many. Singapore, I think, is number one. Yeah, you get, say, Liechtenstein and a couple other small principalities like that are up in the top 10 too. Did you know that, John?
No.
Did you know that, Julia?
I did not.
Okay, well, now you know. And the Fozy know, and this is no longer Sailing Illustrated. It's Per Capita and World Economics Illustrated. Okay, Gordon Smith, who's a Brit, the Falklands also reputedly have large offshore oil reserves.
Yes, that was the big deal.
That I was aware of.
You knew that?
Yeah.
Well, but they're not producing oil, are they?
I don't know, but that was I think something which was talked about a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Stingray wants to know if the Falklands GDP, per capita GDP, does it beat even San Francisco's Marina District, Julia?
Heavens no.
It doesn't. Jody Shields says that Wanji has the highest GBC, gross beer consumption in the world. It's Friday here. It's Saturday morning in Australia. Everybody's in a good mood. And one of the reasons we're in a good mood here in the U.S. is because, as Julia mentioned a moment ago, it's on your monitor. It's your hint.
Flag Day. But...
Yes.
Oh, well.
It's Flag Day here in the USA. That is a photo from the Daily Pilot, which is the newspaper of record. It's now owned by the LA Times, but it's the Orange County Newport, I should say the Newport Beach daily paper of record, and that's a shot they took of Balboa Yacht Club on, it was their opening day, not Flag Day, but every June, the 14th of June, is Flag Day in the USA. It is also Army Day. It's the birth, Julia, of our Army.
Is it?
Yep, and it's Army Day, and what else? Who else has a birthday today? Your favorite candidate for president.
Oh, does he?
Is Donald Trump's birthday.
Oh, good.
Is that your favorite candidate, John? Not necessarily.
I think you guys are trying to choose between the lesser of two evils.
You're right about
but
that.
We're in exactly the same situation here in the UK, I think. So
You got what's his name? Neil Farage? Neil? What's his name? Farage?
I wasn't even including him, but yeah.
Okay,
No,
now
I
we
just think it's
don't
embarrassing.
often see Bobby Steele on here. Opening day at the Balboa Yacht Club. He knew that photo. And Graham Sweeney says the whaling was a big thing in the Falklands before electric light. It was all about whale oil, which allowed many the access to reading after their daily work.
That's right, too.
And Clark, who's Googling like crazy, I can hear his fingers clicking away in Plymouth, Michigan, 3,000 miles or something like that away from us, 2,500. But the population of the Falklands is only 3662, yes. But that's why it's GDP per capita, the lesser of two weevils, James Frederick Bland says. The lesser of two weevils. It's Flag Day in the USA, which brings us quickly to this day in history. I'm going to get this all out of the way at the top here of the show. What happened, Julia, on the 14th of June, 1776?
76. Well.
Here's your first clue.
Well, the flag.
It is. The 14th of June is, at least the myth is, that's when George Washington had Betsy Ross sew up the first flag. Apparently that's apocryphal. Apparently that's more by way of mythology. She was a seamstress in Philadelphia, and apparently George Washington commissioned her to create a flag for the new nation, according to the legend. But scholars, however, credit the flag's design to somebody called Francis Hopkinson, who sounds strangely British, who also designed the Great Seal and the first coin of the U.S. Even so, Ross most likely met Washington and certainly sewed early American flags in her family's Philadelphia upholstery shop. Julia, you must know that to date there have been 27 official versions of the flag, and there wasn't even an official arrangement until 1912.
Wow.
Flag makers did their own thing. The Brits would never allow that. The Union Jack to be adjusted and put the red on top of the white, how croutonic is that?
You weren't
I
making
think they had
flags.
the same in China where people weren't entirely sure where the stars were meant to go.
So the flag predates the declaration. I don't know whether it was July 4th or later, but apparently it was about the same time. And to date, the 27 official versions with different stars. And then, of course, there were 49 stars until Hawaii became a state. In 59, it became the 50th state. Now there are however many rows of whatever there is. And God knows, Julia, what we're going to do when we get a 51st state.
We can't have a 51st state.
Can't be Guam, could be Guam. They're Republican. You'd like that.
No, 51 doesn't fit the stars.
How about Puerto Rico? Julia doesn't want Puerto Rico, John, because it's largely Democratic, and they'll give them 2 more senators in control of the Senate. Is that right?
No, I wasn't thinking about that at all. I'm sorry.
Julie Ahrens couldn't reach a consensus. Okay, enough of all this. We are also grateful today, and we are celebrating, as we do every day, those of you who are Fozy and Super Fozy like Jon Emmett, and those of you who are patrons like Julia, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. We appreciate your support very much indeed. One person we're not celebrating today, Julia, is the non-sailing CEO. I got him at the top of the show because it's Friday night in Europe,
Yeah.
and they want to have a cocktail, and everybody can have a drink now and relax that I've got this slide out of the way. The non-sailing CEO has got to go.
I can hardly wait till you meet him in person.
I have I met him?
I doubt it.
I don't think I think I have met him, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think I have met him at St. Francis. They were doing something there.
Really?
Yeah, just kind of in passing. I'm sure he remembers the occasion well.
I'm sure
I
he
barely
does.
remember it. Clink! Cheers, everybody. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, you can have, that's why I put it at the top of the show for your imbibing convenience. Ted Ryan beat you to it, just opened a bottle of Heineken. Julia, John, I had a bottle of Heineken 0.0.
You did?
Heineken Zero at the YC last night,
And it was good.
and it was good. There's a couple others that are pretty good, but this one I thought was really quite good, surprisingly good.
Oh, good.
For us non-drinkers. Julie Aaron says, cheers. Let's get into what's going on. We got John here and Julie. The New York Vendée, just to wrap that up, we've been covering that now for some time. 27 of the 28 entries have finished, and that is all of those still in the race because, as you know, the 28th was Sam Goodchild, who dropped his rig, and he went to someplace, I guess the Azores, and did not finish. He's DNF. Since our last report, as I said, everybody has finished, and Bravo Zulu too, especially those on the podium. Charlie Delon, who won, and his quote at the prize giving, or either side of it, says, "It's fantastic to have won this race. The deciding point in this race was crossing the front." We've talked a lot about the trough and the front and how it caught up with some of the boats that had already gone through it. But not the top two, not Charlie and Boris. They got ahead of it and stayed ahead of it. He said, "I think I stayed for longer at the helm to make sure I was in the right place. You give it your all. You know that each meter counts, and that is what happened. This achievement strengthens my confidence and helps me believe I can win," meaning the Vendée Globe coming up this November, the Vendée Globe 24-25. "This is my first solo victory on an IMOCA in a transatlantic race. This success comes at the right time and will give a boost to the whole team," meaning his supporters and his shore team, "before the Vendée Globe."
And it will.
And no doubt it will. Here's the podium, and Bravo Zulu to them all. We give probably unfair mention to Boris on the left, who was second, because he's German, and I know him a little bit, not super well, but he's German, sailing for the Yacht Club de Monaco, speaks English, French, German, obviously, and maybe a few others. But Charlie Delon in the middle from France was first, Boris on the left in second, and Jeremy Bayou, who was no surprise, he was leading the pack behind them, indeed finished third. But what do you think of those trophies, Julia? You're not impressed.
Well, yeah, they're nice for a change.
You're not impressed. I like them a lot, especially on Flag Day. And
Yeah.
I mean, can you see them on your monitor?
Sure.
Okay. So they're the Statue of Liberty,
Yes.
given by France.
Yes.
In what year?
1783.
Is that right? Oh, I think it was more recent.
I was.
That was a shot in the dark.
Yes.
J. Frederick Bland, a graduate of our Naval Academy, says the British Jack is a combination of St. Andrew, St. George, St. Patrick. The Union flag or Union Jack is the national, and St. Patrick. Pause, as they put on the teleprompter for President Biden. Then he reads pause. The Union flag or Union Jack is the national flag of the United Kingdom. It is also called because it combines the crosses of the three countries united under one sovereign, the kingdoms of England and Wales and Scotland, and of Ireland, although since 1921, only Northern Ireland has been part of the United Kingdom. Is that all true, John?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
You
I
sound
think it's a shame we don't have the Welsh dragon on the flag somewhere, but I'm not quite sure where it will go. And then I think it was James Frederick Brown was saying people often put the flag the wrong way up because they're not quite sure how it goes. And an upside down flag means you're in distress.
Indeed. Well, you sound about as enthused about that history as Julia does about these trophies. Well, nonetheless, I'm enthused, so to hell with both of you. Bravo Zulu again to the top 10 of the 28, 27 who finished, but you can see here on this graphic, Charlie Delon first, Boris Herman, as we mentioned, second, Jeremy Bayou from France third. And then you know most of these names as we've been covering this race now for quite some time.
It's a great group.
It is indeed. But look at Julia, the women especially, and not that you're impressed by women.
I am.
Per se, but I think Bravo Zulu to them, to Samantha Davies in sixth, and Justine Metro in eighth, and Pip Hare in ninth. So you've got three women in the top 10, which, John, how do you feel about that?
I was going to say about the trophies, I reckon it's only a matter of time before somebody puts a beanie hat on them or whatever at home. But I think in terms of progress for women's sailing, and it's always hard to, have a valid opinion when you're a white middle-aged man, but I think real progress will be when we don't even talk about women sailors. They're just sailors.
I agree.
So you've got, Hannah is driving the AC boat for GBR or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're not saying female. So, but at the same time, you do have to put some things in place like they've done with Sail GP, etc., to break the ice in the first place. Mm-hmm. But yeah, hopefully in 30 years' time, you won't even mention it.
Mm.
Andrew Pindar brings our attention to the fact that there's a strong hue of the Magenta Project in the top 10.
He's starting to sound like Magnus the Magnificent. There's a strong hue of the magenta.
Yes.
Wow, is that cool use of language? Mm-hmm. Well done, Andrew Pindar, for a Friday night. He must have gotten into his liquor locker over there. He's going to give us another tour.
Is he?
Of his liquor locker, and so is Alistair. Alistair Murray gave me a picture of his.
Ooh.
And his is pretty fantastic, especially out there in Mettung at his holiday house. Okay, John, I'm going to give a couple other slides here. And this one is now leading up to the Vendée Globe, which I couldn't remember when it was. I've checked it. It is in November. It starts November 10th from memory. And there are 44 candidates, and they're now really, because of this latest Vendée New York Vendée, I guess they called it, it's down to 40 skippers. There are a couple who are standby in case some of the 40 who have now officially qualified don't make it for one reason or another, get sick or don't have sponsorship. But this is coming up pretty quick in November. I didn't realize it was that quick. 16 international skippers, 18 rookies.
Wow.
6 women, 2 handy sport skippers, 30 causes supported, and fully 14 of the 40 are brand new AMOCAs.
Wow.
Jean Lacombe down there in the lower right is the oldest skipper at age 64. And the youngest skipper is Violet Dorrance. Dorrance, what country is she from? Do we know?
Is it Durange or?
I think it's Durant. Oh, you're right, Julia. Durange with a G. Thank you.
I think so.
Pindar is saying, hope many of the Fosi saw the announcement of the accord between Imoca, Globe Series, and the Magenta Project. No, Andrew, give us a comment and fill us in, and plus give us a link if you would, please. I have not seen that, and thank you for that. So this race is coming up in November. It's the same course. They're going around the planet, the three great capes. Cape Hope, I guess Bon Esperance, Good Hope, down there by Ted Ryman, and then Cape Lewin on the southwest corner of Oz, and then Cape Horn, and then back up to finish in Les Sables d'Olonne in France. And that's all coming up starting Sunday, yes, the 10th of November, the start of the 10th edition of the Vendée Globe. And tell us if you think we should be following that. But John, Julie, I assume you think we should be.
Yes, I think we should.
Yeah, and I think 2024 is a great year for sailing. There's just so much going on. So much going on.
Indeed. Okay, I guess we should get next to the Fins. We've been covering the Fin Masters, and that has wrapped today in the beautiful beach resort area in Italy. The Fin World's Masters wrapped today in ITA, specifically in Punta Ala on the Bay of Falonica. And they've had a great week of racing, and here is the video from yesterday. They didn't get their day 5 video, today's video, out before we went to air, but here is yesterday's video. Sit back, relax, and enjoy yacht racing at its finest. Stingray says those fins can get impressive mast bend, John.
And I think it's a fantastic class. I don't know whether it was just my end. I struggled a little bit to hear the audio. It sounded a bit strange.
Really? You can't hear the audio?
Yeah, I don't know if it was just me or not, but because I was just about to say it'd be good to have a little bit of voiceover. But I mean, I think the Fin class does an amazing job, and the classes are such an important thing. It's not just, world sailing clubs. Actually, classes have a real important role in the success. And we've got the Scorpion Nationals at Castle Cove, and people are bending over backwards to lend out their boats to get other people, new people, to the class out and on the water for a sailing event. And I'm a big fan of trying to make the pie or the cake as big as possible. And I don't really see it as competitions between classes, because, if you like the Fireball, it doesn't mean to say that you have anything against the Topper or whatever. And it's a shame they didn't quite make 300 boats. That would have been a really, really good tagline, wouldn't it? But
Well,
I'm guilty of not
285
being.
is pretty impressive. I mean, 285 alone.
Absolutely, yeah.
But no, there was no voiceover. That was just a plain musical video. Robert Deves does that. He shoots the pictures, but you could hear the music, right?
Just my end, and it could be because I'm on Zoom rather than watching on Facebook or on a
No, no,
Skype
you
recording.
should
It
be
was a
hearing
bit
it on.
strange.
You should be hearing it on Zoom. I mean, you're hearing us, right? Loud and clear.
Yeah, loud
Okay.
and clear. I just think it's really nice to have a little bit of story. So when you watch the video back in 5 years' time, it's like, well, today was a really big day on the water, and PJ was dominant because
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing. Or it was a light wind day, and it was a really high scoring, and that actually decided the regatta, rather than just have lots of fantastic pictures of boats going around buoys and some
No,
music.
totally agree, and that's what you do with the Ilka, and that's what Andy Robertson does with the TP52, the 52 Super Series, which we're going to see his video in a moment. But let's just wrap this one up. So Bravo Zulu, I think the problem is Robert Deves is a one-arm paper hanger taking pictures,
Oh, he's
writing.
amazing.
Right,
I don't know how he does everything. I
exactly.
really don't know how those guys do everything.
And he does. And I didn't see anything from them. Jay Frederick, if you've got something from them, I just want to be sure. I got onto their website, which was they had some problems with somebody trying to hijack their website for this regatta, too, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, really. And I believe the winner, after all 7 races, and I believe only 7 were scheduled, and they wrapped today, that much I know, was Laurent Hay, who has been dominating at least the Masters part of the class. He won the Europeans and more, and he has won again, although I don't have that officially from Robert Deves. So tell me, Boomer Bland, you're on here, and he's not only a Finn sailor, but follows very closely their PR. So let me know if that's not accurate, but I believe he did win and had an impressive scoreline in doing so. 1 threw out a 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, and had a 2 today. But, it was close to the second and third place boats. As you can see, the net points were 9, 10, and 12 under the N column there in the center left. 9, 10, and
all
12.
Europeans. All Europeans.
All
in the top
Europeans. 10. And Dutch John, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. German, 6th. And then Nick Craig, who's strong in this class as well as in the OK. In fact, isn't he the current OK dinghy world champion?
Could well be, yeah.
From memory, I think he's won it, 20 of the last.
He's won an awful lot.
20 of the last 25 times or something. But Bravo Zulu to them all. Bravo Zulu to the class. There's a little closer up of the top 7 anyway, including Nick. And this class, despite not being in the Olympics, and as we talked on Tuesday, has just gone from strength to strength, like the Star class and like others. Final thoughts, John?
Well, I'll say there's an awful lot of focus on the Olympics, but I don't think that's a big indicator of number. I always look at the Solings and the Etchells, and what class would you prefer to be sailing in 2024?
And just before we leave this, I think there's another comment here. Julie, you were going to mention the comment by Andrew Andrew Pindar put up his links to the Magenta Project, right?
Right.
And a YouTube.
Yes.
I think there's another comment here by Andrew that should not go unnoticed and unmentioned, because I made this comment last night over at St. Francis in a meeting. There's some impressive participation levels throughout the world of international sailing. Another example is the J70 Worlds at the Real Club in Palma, Mallorca, who long ago had close to the entry list they
had to close the entry list.
Had to close the entry list at 100. And for them to have 285, as you said, John, closing in on 300 for the Finn Masters, this is the Masters Worlds, is fabulous. You're getting record numbers in the Ilka class all over the place, right?
Yeah, I also think it's venue specific. So a really popular venue, and I'm sure, Palmer's definitely a really popular venue. That makes a big difference. From memory, I think our most popular Masters Worlds was Hyères, And there's a reason that these Olympic circuit venues are used year in year out because they're just great venues. In fact, I think if I'm 80 years old and no longer coaching, I'd still want to go to Palma in March and April. I'm pretty institutionalized.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's all down to the class and the PR, and just the more people on the water, the better. In terms of Olympic stuff, I mean, as I said, I think that ship sailed, pun intended. But I think the fin class embraces its legacy, which is only a good thing.
I was also, I think I mentioned on Tuesday's show, I think we have fully 100 entries. Somebody down in the sunfish world at Davis Island Yacht Club, or I think they're actually the event is up in Barnegat Bay, and they've got 100 entries more than for the Sunfish North Americans, which hasn't happened in a long time. I raced in a couple of Sunfish North Americans with 100+ entries. Just like the Finns do, they divide you into multiple fleets, and then red will race blue while green races yellow, and then red will race green, and everybody gets to race everybody else some number of times. And it's beautiful for the sport. Look at the turnout they've got in Newport this weekend for the New York Yacht Club's 170th regatta. So maybe it's a combination of maybe it's just people happy to be out of COVID. Maybe that's all we're doing is we're shaking off the pandemic finally. What do you think, Julia?
I don't know. I think everybody's sort of struggling to catch up.
What do you think, John?
I know. I think there was a lot of lessons to be learned from the pandemic, and one of them is that we're very sociable creatures, and sport gives us that opportunity. And with very few exceptions, we're not meant to be isolated and sort of on our own or whatever. We're meant to have human company, and sailing clubs and regattas really provide that. In fact, the Olympic status thing, I would say at some level, like in a domestic level in the UK, it possibly brings the numbers down. Because when you do a qualifier, if you're racing against the Ilka 7, there's 4 or 5 guys who are absolutely world class, top 20 in the world. So if you're a really good club sailor and you rock up to a UK qualifier with a full-time sailors and top youths, probably the best you're going to do is outside the top 10. Whereas if you sail a non-Olympic class, which is a lot of fun, like the Botti D0 or the RS Aero or Streak or whatever, as a club sailor, you can come and you can go home, having stood on the podium. So, yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. And master sailing is good because it just shows it's a sport for life.
There's a comment from Fritz Mueller here saying, I'm thinking that there's little interest in the heavily pro-rated classes because of the cost, because of the money involved. What do you think of that, John? You agree with Fritz?
What do you mean by the heavily pro-rated classes?
I think where there's a lot of pros sailing in the class, and it's expensive to race in that class because the preparation and so on.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of classes will have Corinthian sailors, so you can have that differentiation. But I think we're lucky. There's just so many classes and so many types of sailing out there. There really is something for everyone. I think the J70 fleet, for example, is very strong. You go to China, they all have the J80s, and I'm always a big fan of that one design element, so that it's the sailors winning rather than the boat. And at the same time, there's definitely a place for Moth and those really elite boats. But for me, my heart is really with the one design.
Well, the J24, which is their Europeans or world, something's going on at Yacht Club Costa Smeralda right now. They got blown out yesterday, Mistral. But they have a Corinthian division, sometimes a separate Corinthian championship. Likewise, the J70s in this country are doing more and more Corinthian stuff, which I think is good. David James saying there are pro-level sailors who don't charge. Yeah, true, fair enough. And there are pro-level sailors who sail happily alongside the Corinthians, the amateurs, and vice versa. So
you're rated category 1 or category 3. There's no more category 2, and different classes will have different rules. I mean, the Cape 31s, I think they tend to have quite a lot of pro sailors, and some classes don't want it, and it's very restrictive. But yeah, that's the devil's in the detail. Lily's starting to try and get into pro sailing, so I'm learning a lot at the moment.
Well, let's say Bravo Zulu here to the Finn class as we leave that story and move ahead now, excuse me, into your bread and butter, John, at least what has been your bread and butter. We're only 42 days out from the Olympics, and we delighted to have you on here representing your coaching career, your company, Jon Emmett Sailing, get to the front of the fleet, and give us a little preview, if you will, please, of what you think is coming up in Marseille in 42 days.
And the first thing I'd say is Olympic performance is very much like a container ship. So for sailors to get up to speed, it takes a long time, and it takes a long time to slow down as well. So I'm probably going to put together a piece for Seahorse, etc., with the runners and the riders and what's happening with the various different classes.
In all the classes, not just the ILCA?
Oh, all the classes. Yeah,
Oh,
no, I'm always very interested. Always very interested. And you see those transitions. I mean, I think I said to you, a lot of the kite surfers have come from either 29ers or from ILCAs. I mean, it's the same. It's the same people, just bigger or smaller. But I think that the runners and the riders are fairly clear at this stage. I saw recently one of the sailors, not a medalist, has just decided to have operation. I'm not sure that's a good idea with 42 days to go. But obviously you never know all the detail. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic Olympics. I mean, it's now half foiling, depending on the way you look at it, which I think the balance is right. Because it's never going to be perfect. I mean, we would all love to have keel boats in there, and we'd all love to have match race racing in there, and to have men's and women's 470 and all the rest. But there's just a limit of the number of athletes, and that's the way it is. And I think the ILCA fulfills that role of making Olympic sailing accessible, which is so important. I mean, we're not in the 1950s when people are building kit boats. People are very time poor. To get people into sailing, you need classes where people can jump in with a tatty old 500-pound boat and just get on the water. Because if somebody said to you, "Do you want to try sailing?" You've got to build your own boat first. I think you're going to do a different sport.
Yeah,
so
but John, hang on, and because I know you were back and forth with some of the other FOSI on this, and no one requires you to sail in the Fireball class, where a kit boat is still possible, I guess, and there's some other classes, and nobody requires you to get a kit boat and sail in the Fireball class. And I think there was a lot to be said for the times, the days, more or less past, but where you could, for next to nothing, build a kit boat in your garage with your mother, with your father, with your siblings.
No, it's fantastic. But
I don't see anything wrong with that per se.
No, I think it was fantastic days, absolutely fantastic time, and it introduced a lot of people to sailing, and a lot of those people, if you like, started sailing families. So they've now got their children sailing and their children sailing.
Exactly.
And if you look at something like the Scorpion class, I know there's lots and lots of people currently in their garages taking off paint, taking off varnishes, resorting their boats to get them out. But at the same time, it's really important to realise that those times have passed. And to be forward looking and embrace the future. And I think that the problem which will kill the sport is when people end up very sort of doom mongering or whatever. And I think the sport's in a great place. One of the club members recently said to me, it's a real shame this young sailor's doing the Wednesday evening race in her IQ foil. And I said to him, I don't really care if she's going on the water and she's got a big smile on her face. It's great. On Monday she cruises a 420. On Wednesday she goes foiling. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that however people get on the water, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think no one would disagree with that. The biggest problem the sport faces, and no one's been able to figure out a remedy yet, except very strict one design with limitation on the number of sails you can buy per year, yada yada. But the problem still, the barrier to entry and the barrier to continuing participation is simply the cost. And
Absolutely.
Olympic campaigns now, at least in this country, and I'm sure in others, have gotten, as somebody's pointed out in the comments, are so expensive. The boat is, not even necessarily when you start factoring in all the international travel and so on.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the American budget, I won't sort of name any particular federations, but there's some federations who just do incredibly well on almost no money. But I think we need to work with the manufacturers. If you start saying boats are too expensive, we're not going to buy new boats, then you get to the problem that there's no new boats and eventually there's no class. What we need to do is try and work with the manufacturers and to bring the costs down. I mean, it's in the manufacturer's interest. If you have a strong class, you have more boats, and you have more boats, you have more sailors, and all the rest of it. And I think everyone needs to take a long-term view. But I'm certainly not going to sit here and say sailing is a cheap sport. But what a lot of the clubs do that works well to bring people in is a pay-per-play model where you have club boats, and it is easy to do that with some classes. You have your club Ilkas and your club 420s and your club Fevers or whatever to get people in the sport.
Exactly.
Because that's one of the big barriers is the cost of ownership. And for a lot of people, let them try sailing before you expect them to invest a lot of time and money. The other thing, somebody needs to go down and take all the signs down that says private members only and scrub it out and say new members welcome. But that's a cultural shift, I guess.
Well, I think that's true. And I think more and more clubs, at least in this country, are doing exactly that. You see that all the time in Australia and New Zealand. And it should not be an issue. It should be, in fact, say our club over here, 3 blocks away, one of the most prestigious clubs in the country, if not certainly, well, in the world. And if you want to be a junior sailor, you come over there and join the junior sailing program basically for nothing. They charge a fee if you're affluent, but if you say, hey, can I do this for a year, try it out for nothing? Yeah. And they've got high schools over there that are sailing the 420s and whatever else they're sailing. And they can go out and sail on the J22s, the club provided boats. So I agree. I fear mongering. I think there's a difference, John.
Doom mongering. Doom mongering, I call it. If you haven't got something positive to say, just please don't say anything.
I disagree. See, that's where we disagree. And you and I have had this argument. I think there's a difference between having views, opinions on things that are important or that you think are important, but certainly you're having an opinion that is contrary to somebody else's opinion about how to move the sport forward or make a class or make a regatta better, and is not.
That's not doom mongering.
Yeah. What do you call it?
Doom mongering is saying it's dying, it's never going to get any better, and
what's the word again that you're using?
He's not using a word.
Oh, he is.
Doom mongering.
Mongering. Okay.
Have
Well,
you never
I
seen
agree.
Dad's Army?
I
Have you
agree.
never seen Dad's Army? You wouldn't want to go to war with a fellow soldier who just told you we're all doomed.
Yeah, well, exactly right. And I totally agree. The sport is and we've been very careful here on this show, and I think all the FOSI agree, the sport is never doomed because we think it's the coolest sport in the world, irrespective of what's happening, and we'll have cycles. I noticed a graphic. I don't have it handy, I don't think. Maybe I can find it. I noticed a graphic the other day in some publication here somewhere, some website. Maybe I mentioned this on the show the other day. Julia, maybe you remind me if I did. It listed all the sports: baseball, soccer, ice hockey, football, all the various sports, particularly sports that kids play. And there were two takeaways from that. The most expensive youth sport on that list, do you know what it was?
Football.
Ice hockey.
Ice hockey.
Because of the ice time and the equipment, and there's, if you start playing at a high level, you get moved onto a double A or a triple A team, and you're on a so-called travel team and moving around. And it's also the fastest growing sport. So that was one.
Somebody's doing something right.
Right. Chris Dewar is there. Chris he's got it there in the comments. He's right. The other takeaway was that guess what sport was not even listed?
Sailing.
And there were, 25 sports. I'll get that graphic and put it in the show on Tuesday.
Sailing.
Sailing was not even listed as a sport, expensive or otherwise. And that, I think that is our biggest problem, is that people think we're a bunch of cocktail cruisers and elitist snobs who don't let people into their clubs and don't think of clubs. They don't think of Olympic sailing as really Olympic athletes doing their thing.
Yeah.
And they don't even think of, and that's why Russell, to his credit perhaps, is calling his sailors athletes, not sailors. What do you think, John?
I call sailors athletes, for sure, because I've done a lot of work with them in the gym, and that's why I think an off the shelf model is so good, because literally you go and buy the same boat as is currently being raced by Amory Wyndham or whatever, and I think that makes it accessible, and that's something that you can't do in a lot of sports. You can't turn up to Wimbledon and play against the champions. Whereas you can do regattas against the very best sailors in the world.
Indeed.
And that's an important thing. But I completely agree with you about having an active discussion, and I always tell myself, to have a blank sheet of paper. And one of the things that came up from a pandemic, which is very sad, is quite often when people don't like another opinion, they just block them. So they can't see. And that's a real shame, because it's through open discourse that you get that change of opinion, and it's almost cowardly, because if you block the other person, you can say what you like and then they have no right of reply. So one of the things with the small M&As, you actually get solutions. So somebody was writing to me, they're doing that, build small boats from kits very cheaply in their little island, because that's the only way that they can get people on the water. And they've actually offered to send me the kit design, and that's a fantastic solution for them. What I like to see is solutions that we can have, worldwide, because one of the things is we are a global sport, and just to roll that out. But yeah, you said about the fireballs. I love I love the fireballs. I did the Worlds quite a few years ago, and if I sail a fireball, it doesn't have any big impact to any other boat I sail, although there's only one of me. Hopefully in a couple of weeks I'm going to try a D0, and that's probably another boat I'm a bit too small for.
Yeah, and we talk about big boats versus small boats. Julia, do you want to weigh in here on any of this? You're nodding your head yes. You're saying agreeing with John about opinions and speaking out and sharing information. I think
people should be able to speak out.
And
if there's any room.
And it needs to be an ongoing thing. I think this is part of what the success of this show, this Silly Sailboat Show, is that it is live. And as you said, we can comment and share comments as going forward with everybody. Julia.
Gordon Smith is talking about having a global and diverse participation in the groundwork for the sport's long-term participation in the Olympics. But you can also get experience just in your own backyard.
True. Yeah, but he goes on to say, which necessarily requires embracing nations and beliefs that are not in line with one's own perspectives. Okay, right. Fair enough. But by the same token, you have to draw the line somewhere. If you've got some regime, and I'm not going to name any, but if you've got some horrific regime who nobody wants to deal with, nobody.
Yeah.
Look at what the Commonwealth did to with apartheid in South Africa, and you guys.
That's say to everybody.
Well, you guys particularly, but you refused to go there and sail, and you refused to let them sail in your events. And I don't know if that was correct or not. I happen to think we ought to let sailors sail. I don't think we should penalize sailors for their stupidity of their governments or so on. But that's another issue. And I'm glad we're having a full and frank discussion here when we've got Jon Emmett. If you're just joining us, we're about not quite an hour into today's show. Number, what is it, Julia? 718. Mm-hmm. And let's carry on to another topic and send your questions, lots of questions. And Julia always likes to remind us to go look at the questions. Let's review the 52 Super Series. They have a day off in Newport today. And the series has been going on for the first time in Newport, Rhode Island. It's been in the States before. It was in Florida and Miami in the past. But they're in Newport, Rhode Island, hosted by New York Yacht Club, Harbor Court, that beautiful mansion up there on the south end of the harbor, the Brown family mansion. And it is one of the nicest facilities in the world, and not just because of Harbor Court, but because of Newport with other clubs there. Ida Lewis Yacht Club, which is down there at the pier, on the long pier at the end of, just at the foot really of the Brown Mansion, and has been there since forever. There are a couple other esteemed clubs as well, plus another 40-something, 50, I don't know how many around Narragansett Bay, up the bay, Barrington and East Greenwich and on and on and on, Bristol. So there's a lot of sailing and a lot of clubs and a lot of volunteer action and activity which helps support all of this. But there's one other crucial thing, and that is Sail Newport. Sail Newport, which has been there since we lost the cup in '83. A handful of us got together and founded Sail Newport. It is very ably run by Brad Reed, Kenny Reed's more famous brother, Ken, the president of North Sails. And Brad, who's also a terrific sailor and hockey player.
Can't miss that.
And hockey player, as a lot of people are in the sailing world, especially in the Northeast and in the Midwest. But it is a fabulous facility, fabulous town, and it's great to have the TP52s there. I think Russell Coots made a mistake by running, for sponsorship and other reasons, he should have run Sail GP in Newport. And I think if he had, a lot of people would have gone there and watched it. He would have gotten more publicity and more sponsorship than ever. But they're having a day off. They've completed 6 races. Quantum is still in the lead. Quantum powered by American Magic. And here is their video from yesterday.
It's day 3 here at the XS52 Super Series Newport Trophy, hosted by the beautiful New York Yacht Club. We've been up there a few times for various different functions, notably Owner's Dinner on the second night, hosted by Austin Fragaman from the Interlodge team. Meantime, we're going on the water. Good forecast at the top of the table. Well, Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic, have stepped clear after yesterday, but can anybody pull them back?
Well, the racing's been going very well for the guys on the water. It's exciting to see the development of the younger generation of sailors. It's a great lead into the second half of this regatta.
So short delay to the start of race 5, and breeze came in at 215 degrees, about 6-7 knots on the start line. Quite a streaky, patchy breeze nonetheless. Coming off the start line at the pin end of the line will Vayu lead, going up the first beat. A good start from Quantum, lined up alongside Platoon. Platoon get better upwind, bounce Quantum out to the right, and around the top mark it's a lead for Vayu with Interlodge round in second, Platoon in third. And that's very much the order all the way around the course. And so Vayu win for the second time at this regatta. Interlodge through in second, Platoon in third, and Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic, the regatta leaders, down in 8th. Well, race 6 starts in 12 knots of breeze. Once again, it's races 1 off the pin end of the line. This time it's Gladiator going to get the best start. Vayu in on the pin as well, but not quite able to get the timing and end up slightly to leeward of Gladiator. Round the top mark, well, Gladiator with a good lead. Vayu very tight on ley line along with Quantum Racing. Platoon not far behind. Vayu jibe off early and lose out, and so Gladiator lead all the way round. Technical problem in the middle of the race for Platoon, who hit something with the rudder and have to leave the race course. But through the finish line, it's a win for Gladiator. Second place for Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic. Third are Allegra, and in fourth Vayu. Keep the pressure on the regatta leaders, Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic.
Yeah, it feels like we're improving as a team and working well together. The chemistry is good. We had a tough first race, but we rallied for the second one and finished strong.
Our goal is top 4s every race, and if we can do that, we'll be in good shape.
I think we're trying to keep things simple and out of trouble, and it's working for us. We've been a little bit lucky and also good, so enjoying the moment. Let's hope to finish like this.
We have a new boat, we are learning. Today was a good day for us, coming back. We could be on the podium third. So maybe boat of the day, and suddenly we come back with this kind of result, so not very nice.
So after 6 races, leaders are Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic, on 17 points. Second, Vayu on 20 points. Third, Gladiator, Tony Langley on 32 points. So rolling through the midpoint of the regatta with two good races today. Quantum Racing still on top. Value in contention. Pretty solid day for them all in all. Very difficult situation for Platoon, hitting something in the second race after the third in the first race. That's really tough for them. We now have a little bit of a lay day for the clubs around the island race. We'll be back on Saturday and Sunday. We'll join you then.
Yeah, nice video. There's some comments about it being too many kind of MTV-esque.
Yeah.
David James says average cut 1.2 seconds, so way to destroy the video. But otherwise, good commentary, good stuff, and bravo Zulu to the class. Now, did you hear that mention from Andy Robertson, who's doing a terrific job? And I agree with Ed Worley as well that the coverage has been, it's live from out in Rhode Island Sound, and they've got aerial, they got drones, they've got on the water coverage, and Andy is out there in a power boat. We talked about this on Tuesday. Not on shore in the sound booth, not in London and Ealing in a sound booth like Sail GP. He's actually out on the water like Andy Rose and I do and when we do Gov Cup. And it's the way to do it. He can see what's going on. He knows what's going on. He can taste and feel and read the water like, everybody else. So bravo Zulu to them. And did you see the mention about something being hit in the water and losing a rudder?
I really hope something like that doesn't happen in the AC. You always want the sailors who sail the best to come out on top, and that's really disappointing. We watched this all together on the previous Tech Check, didn't we?
We did. Now, do you want to know what they hit?
Yes.
We have a world exclusive here, Commodores, ladies and gentlemen. That is from yesterday's racing. They did not hit Rick Bannerow asking, did they hit the non-sailing CEO? I wouldn't even wish that on him, that crouton. Yeah. You see in the lower right corner of that image?
Yeah. Oh.
You see that? Can you make that out, John, in your video feedback?
Are they mammals? I really can't, to be honest.
Rick Bannerow's got it. They are basking sharks.
Oh.
Common in those waters in that part of the world. And this is a photo forward just before we went to air. You talk about tech checks and everything else we were trying to do.
Yeah.
But a member of the race committee, who is also basically a super Fozy, Vice Commodore Claire Harrington, sent this photo and this comment. So this photo was taken yesterday during the second race. Excuse me. The boat shown is Gladiator, which is Tony Langley from your country, John. It's Platoon. Tony Langley's Gladiator, rather. And then Platoon was right behind them. You can see the sharks off the starboard bow. Those are what Platoon hit and cost them a split rudder.
But the sharks probably didn't have a particularly good day either.
No, of course not.
and there was definitely overlap going on, so they were windward boat.
Well, in this case, yes. You think Gladiator had to keep clear because they were to windward of the sharks?
Well, as long as you assume that they're all one boat, there's definitely a bit of overlap there going on, I reckon. That's rule 11.
Well, I'll bet you the crew didn't even know they were in the water, didn't see them. They're out there. Again, it's not like they're in where Russell was in those confined waters with Sail GP. Rule 42, David James is saying, basking sharks, Rick Bannerow, who's a real expert. I mean, he spends his whole almost all of his waking hours out in these waters. Long Island Sound, Rhode Island Sound, and so on. Basking sharks are frequently misidentified as
great whites.
Great whites, and J. Frederick Bland, Boomer Bland, has given us a link.
I wouldn't want to go close enough to find out the difference, to be honest.
Size.
So thank you to Claire. Thank you to Vice Commodore Harrington for that little piece of inside information. And bravo Zulu to this class. They've got 4 more races, 2 tomorrow on Saturday, 2 Sunday in Newport, and then that wraps up their first series. And then they have another series. They're keeping the boats in Newport and sailing next month in New York Yacht Clubs and Sail Newport and so on. They have this so-called Newport Regatta sponsored by Rolex. for another separate series in the 52 Super Series for this year, 2024. And you can see Quantum's on top. And Valu's doing quite well. They won, I think they've won 2 races now, haven't they? Yes, they have. They won races 3 and 5. And Gladiator won a race. So we'll follow that. They have the day off, as I mentioned, today because they're sailing in the Round Connecticut Island race. It was pretty breezy. It finished early. And they had a tracker for that. I didn't really pay much attention because the tracker was a little suspect, in fact. But that is one of the coolest races in the world. And, of course, John, you've got the Round the Island. You've got the Round the Cows, Round the Isle of Wight Island race this Saturday, tomorrow. Have you ever raced in?
I actually did it, not the race, but I actually did it once for charity in an Ilka the day before the race. And
in an Ilka around the Isle of Wight?
Yeah, no problem.
How many miles?
We did it for, I don't know, it took most of the day. We got to the Needles too quickly, and it took ages to get around because we got the tide slightly wrong. We had to fetch there in 25 knots, and then we went straight to Keel Week. And then somebody rang me up and said, "Can I move my boat off the slip?" I'm like, "I'm in Keel, please." Yeah, you can move it. No
just to be quite clear, you didn't sail from the Needles to Keel.
No.
Okay.
No, but it was a really nice thing, and I'm not the only one to have done that. But yeah, the Around the Island way, it's very special, and there's a lot of big boats sailing in Cowes. And just going back to your question earlier, I have so many friends who do both dinghies and big boats, but I think doing dinghies really helps your big boat sailing. If you look at a lot of the top sailors in big boats, they will have come from dinghies. And I see a lot of them, they get paid to be professional tacticians, drivers, etc., and then they spend their free time moth sailing in Foyle Town.
No question. There are a lot of big boat sailors who don't make very good small boat sailors, who start in big boats and try to go down. But there are a lot of small boat sailors who become darn good big boat sailors, starting with,
That's what I do now with the keelboat coaching. If they have I suggest they go and do a bit of dinghy stuff.
And then there are people like Julie who just turn into just plain good sailors, only do big boat sailing, only have ever done big boat sailing.
All right, I would just not survive.
I think next time, if we finally get Jon Emmett here to San Francisco, we're going to put you in, maybe not in Ilka, but we're going to put you in one of those J22s, and John's going to go out and coach you to win.
Oh, J22s are probably big enough, but I'm a Fairline Clipper 39-footer, and that's just my size.
Okay. Well, Jay Frederick Bland's put the results in for the Finn Masters. Can you just confirm that Mr. Hay won, Monsieur Hay? Jay Frederick, because I'm not going to go opening up that website, but thank you for that. And Jay Frederick Bland wants you to try a Pelican. That's the boat he's talking about, kit boats. He built from.
That's the one he built.
He built from scratch.
Yeah.
I mean that's just amazing. That's just amazing. I wish I had that skill set.
Yeah.
My point earlier is to make it as easy as possible for people to get in the sport, because sailing enthusiasts are always going to be happy spending time in their garage, and probably the wives want them to spend more time indoors. But just opening the doors in the first place is the important thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I wish I had the patience to do something like that, to build something. I just don't have that's, you know what, John, you're a YouTuber, and you shoot the stuff, and then you have to go into what we call post-production, and you spend how much time in post to do one of your...
Well, you normally try and get it out within 24 hours, but it's really frustrating because I talk to such interesting people, and I would love to do, a 10-minute interview and put it all out there. But I just know the number of views will be so much smaller than if I do a 3-minute video.
Yep.
And it's not per se that I want the number of views, but I just want people to see the work. And it's the same. I spent my misspent youth in the 1980s when we had 10-minute long power ballads. music now is much shorter. And I think that's unfortunately through everything. And that's why sailing is a sport. We need to make it easy for people to get boats that require no maintenance. They can rig quickly, they can be on the water, they can be having fun, they can be in the bar afterwards. And for whatever reason, that's just how I see.
And that's a key.
society's
That is a
changed.
key thing. Even if you're a non-drinker, being in the bar afterwards with a fake beer, as I call them,
Yes.
is perfectly.
Yes. And
Perfectly
We
fun.
learned that in the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Socializing is important.
It is. We heard a lot of
people
we heard a
felt
lot of
very
people,
low.
especially kids, by keeping them out of school.
Absolutely.
Horrific. Blake Middleton's on. Cheers to the land of 10,000 lakes. J. Frederick Bland confirming that Laurent Hay, Monsieur Hay from France, did win overall, which is what I thought I saw in the standings. So that's all good. Ted Ryman, I've always been a big boat fan, but since becoming a Fozy, I'm learning a lot about small boats. Such a good show. Well, thank you for that. And David James, the finest regatta, this is a great comment, and is true in my never so humble opinion. The finest regatta of all time was the 2001 Sesquicentennial, celebrating the 150th anniversary of the first race of the America's Cup in 1851.
Mm-hmm.
Were you around for that regatta, John? Isle of Wight?
Like, I think
2001?
that would have been just after Sydney, wouldn't it?
Yeah, a year after Sydney.
Yeah, possibly I was there.
It was July, August after Sydney. I was there and I was hobbling around I had a broken ankle, and it was fabulous. Boomer is saying Rob Coots was the top American. A 70-year-old was 83rd out of 285 with a couple of bad races and a string of 18 to 20th finishes. Dinghies are to big boats as soaring is to flying powered aircraft. Good point, Fritz Mueller. Good point. Okay, so racing at this back on the 52 Super Series, racing wraps this Sunday. They got 2 tomorrow, 2 Sunday. And again, they have live coverage, which, as Ed Worley says, is quite good indeed. Shall we go, John, now? Julia, shall we go to this America's Cup news, our kind of main
I just
story?
have to say once again, like when you see those guys racing hard in their 70s,
Yeah.
I mean, that is just such a good thing. And that's inspirational.
Well,
And
you're
that-
right.
that
They
is such a
get to
good
the
thing.
ley line up there, and there's a starboard train, which you want to avoid because you're just going to get gassed and pushed back, and it looks like a bunch of Ilkas coming into the top mark, and you come in on port tack, and you hope you find a hole, and you hope you can tack the leeward and still make the mark. The current's not pushing you the wrong direction, because otherwise you're going to take if you start to take sterns, it's going to be you're probably going to take all of the sterns. Right, John?
Yeah, but I said that the Fin Masters just to keep people active and sailing.
Oh, the Fin
It's
Masters.
just such a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you were
Just
invited
such a
to
good
sail.
thing.
Why didn't you go sail in that?
Because I'm about 67 kilos.
Oh, come on.
I'm a bit scared of the D0, truth be known, but I'll tell you all about that in a few weeks.
Okay, let's go do the America's Cup because people are wondering about what the hell happened to Red Bull Alinghi Racing yesterday. So this is our AC37 Cup date for today, Friday, the 14th of June. My gosh, Julia, we're halfway through the year. We're
Yes.
coming up on the longest day of the year. I was talking with
Yes.
Hamish Ross yesterday, and he said, yep, we're coming up on the shortest day of the year, and then after that, it's summer. We can't wait. So what happened? I got some images here for you before we show you the video. I'm sure you've all seen the video. If not, it's on my Facebook page and all over the place, YouTube and so on. But they were out in as Jimmy Spithill was digging. Jimmy did one of his little put the knife in and twist it before he even knew it was in your back.
Yeah.
And he made why are you laughing?
A bit visual. I mean, it's never a good thing when a mast falls down, but let's just be thankful it happened in training rather than the actual competition.
For sure. But it was a beautiful day. That we call it champagne racing. We're loath to call it that, but it was a glamour day. They had nice breeze, and you can see here that it was at least up against the shore. It's not that bumpy, And Jimmy Spithill said, yeah, it wasn't that windy, 20 knots or so, and no seaway to speak of. What could have possibly gone wrong?
Right?
Well, I hope his rig doesn't come down anytime soon, because he will regret having teased them with that. Now, there is still a screen grab of the video, and you can see how much mast bend they've got. They have a lot of pre-bend in that rig. And we can debate some of this in a minute. But there is the picture that I had at the top of my Facebook page yesterday that went all over the world. People are wondering, where the hell did you get that? Because there was just that long-range video. And, of course, those of you who are videographers will know you can go in there, clean it up, and take a screen grab. Well, take a screen grab, then clean it up, which is exactly what I did. And it got picked up because people are too lazy to go do it themselves.
Congratulations.
Not you, Julia. You'd go do that. John would go do that. So there it is as the rig comes tumbling down. And now I have, Commodores, ladies and gentlemen, I have what I think is the best video I've seen. And Tom Morris did a video, and there's been a couple others. But this is from Matt Sheehan, Planet Sail, and he has the best video, the best analysis that I have seen so far, and here it is.
Thursday the 13th of June was a punchy day in Barcelona, with the breeze peaking at 22 knots, perfect for testing and training in top-end conditions. But midway through what Alinghi Red Bull Racing Team later said had been a very productive session, drama struck as the Swiss boat was dismasted shortly after a bear away.
It was a very productive one in the top range wind speeds and conditions. Beautiful day. And and then by the end of it, during a bear away with a mast failure, which resulted in a mast breaking into pieces, and now the boat is back at the dock safe, and we're just recovering the mast, and we get into the repairs. Of course, it's in yachting we know things like this can happen, and they're not uncommon, and that's why we have spares, as I said, and we have the approach we have with people on the water and technicians and engineers. So it's going to be important to put it all back together as soon as possible and get back into our preparation. But we'll see later this afternoon. We'll have a good picture for sure, a good idea.
Clearly, this is a huge blow for the Swiss, but the incident will have sent shockwaves through the entire America's Cup community. This is the first time that an AC-75 has lost its mast, and while it's clear that these boats push the limits in all areas, the fact that the class rules have strict controls on the dimensions and structure of the masts will ring alarm bells for all the teams. Under the rules, AC-75 masts have to conform to specific dimensions. Teams are not allowed to reduce the laminate thickness, but they can add to it. When it comes to the fit-out, teams are allowed to produce custom designs for some of the items, such as the mainsail tracks, the lock-in system and the camber control. But the standing rigging is strictly one design. Throughout the history of the America's Cup, there have been many dismastings, but given the strict controls on the mast and rigging for the AC-75s, this one will be a concern for all of the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Well, bravo Zulu to Matt at Planet Sail. If you have not subscribed to his YouTube channel, I commend it to you, planetsail.co.uk, and he does some other things. Now he's doing a podcast, he's doing some other cool things, and as I said, his analysis is thoughtful. It's not, hyperbolic. It's not speculative. Yes. And he's hit the nail on the head. I was talking with Ed Worley last night and Hamish Ross and a couple others of you who, when you saw that stuff on my Facebook page, started pinging me and saying, what is that? They didn't see the video on that I also posted. And they're wondering what was what team was that?
Yeah.
And what's happened? Was it an AC-75? Is it what it looks like? Because I'll post something up and just let people kind of, what is that? What is that? But tease them a little bit. Stingray says the loads on the AC-75s must be pretty shocking. And they have taken the backstays off this
I know
go around.
That always has disturbed me. I wonder. There's more room to move around, but honest to Pete.
Well, it wasn't even moving around. They were a waste of space and windage. So what was happening in the last Cup? They had to have backstays, and there was a big back and forth with the jury, and because the Luna Rossa Prata Pirelli started taking the backstays forward and putting them alongside the mast, and then they said they're still rigged, they're still on. Well, you got to use them. You got to have them tension in the back, and then they tried running really light kind of line instead of wire, instead of really strong backstays. And finally, and there was a big fight, and there was a big controversy. But finally, everybody said, okay, we'll take the backstays off the rigs this time and rely on the main sheet, because they're going upwind all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So the main sheet is pulling down on the leech of the main, which is keeping the mast from going over the bow of the boat. And as they were coming into the top mark, that was race training. They started to bear away, and the main sheet eased. And there's some speculation that the Cunningham, which tensions the luff of the sail, and this is not a Cunningham like on a laser or a thistle or it is a serious hydraulic Cunningham that's pulling the whole luff of 2 luffs. Remember, of the mainsail.
Yeah.
These are deep luff mains. So I thought his analysis was pretty good, and let me show you a little more, and then we'll go to the questions and comments and get Julia, get you and John's thoughts. Here's the aerial of the mess, of the immediate aftermath. They haven't been able to pull the rig back onto the boat. Any of you who have been through this know what a mess this can be, and it is not pleasant to try to recover the rig and the sails, because at once you're trying to recover it and you're trying not to further damage the stuff, whether it's the sails or the rig. And you also are trying, as you're kind of pulling it into the boat, having a little bit of a preliminary look to see what might have been at fault, what might be missing, what might have failed. And as Fritz Mueller is saying, to me, in my eye, looked like a compression failure, full stop. All this other talk about Cunninghams and easing the main sheet and so on. I just think they had a lot of pre-bend in the rig, as you saw in that earlier shot.
From the beginning.
You saw that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it just got loaded up, and the compression got out of column, and it failed. And we'll show you that video again in a moment. But here is, thanks to Richard Gladwell, with whom I've also had back and forth overnight. And Richard, as usual, has gotten to the great photos. This photo is one that he had gleaned out of the mess somewhere.
He is taking great photos.
Well, he's not taking them. He just manages to find them out of the various media piles. And he's more, as I said, I'm not very patient. He's more patient than I. But he's also publishing. I mean, I'm doing a live television show, so I don't. And unlike John, who's got to do post-production after he shoots a video, and then he's got to go into the studio, and he's got to edit and do tops and tails. And I have no patience to do that.
No, me neither, really. I think I'm probably happier in front.
That's why I like live.
Yeah.
Coming on here, do it live, and then, shut it down and put your feet up and take a nap. But I digress. Look at this. Now, part of what you can see here along the top, there's a split in this. And there's some speculation as to whether these masts are built in 3 sections, whether this compression failure was just cracked right there where you see the thing came apart, or there's a crack across the top that's hard to see. But again, I don't want to get into all the speculation, because as Tom Morris pointed out, Mozzie Sales, about the Cunningham tension, while the sheet is east could be the source of the failure. Peter Selwyn down in Auckland, I'm not so sure about that. We'll see. The teams, first of all, teams are never going to say. They're not going to tell us what they know.
No.
Right, John?
Right. I just have to say how well Matt speaks as well. That was really, really nice put together. I think that sets a very high benchmark.
Well, exactly. And he of course, is writing, too. He's a writer, and he's been a journalist and a writer for a long time. So he writes good prose, and then he's got it in a teleprompter, or he's got it on a piece of paper, and he's reading from it. And then he goes into post-production and edits all that other footage, which he had to glean from various places. So Bravo Zulu to him. The best comment on my Facebook page after I put that stuff up last night was from Graham Sweeney, who said, "Hey, I thought Red Bull gave you wings, not took them away."
Ad department's got to solve that.
Huh? Hey, Red Bull loves this stuff.
Yeah.
The Red Bull is getting more.
No such thing as bad publicity, Tom.
All ink is ink.
Yeah.
Ted Ryman says, yeah, Matt is excellent. RG has access to all the recon photos. There are maybe 600 a day being put out into that system,
Wow.
Stingrays. I have access to them too, Stingray, but I don't have the patience to go looking through all of them. But Bravo Zulu to Matt, and even to Tom Morris, who's taking an analytical look at it. I'm not going to run his video, but go to his YouTube channel as well and have a look. Fritz Mueller observing, and I think you're right, mass pump with sea state under compression, it facilitates failure. Yeah, but I don't know that there's that kind of sea state like in a big boat, Fritz, but I will see. I can't say. I've talked to some experts. I've talked to some engineers and some naval architects overnight and this morning, and I look at. They've got a problem with the engineering and the design of these masts. Mm-hmm. And that's what one is hearing. And that's why the teams, as Matt correctly observed, why these teams are spun up about this. Mm-hmm. There are going to be some late nights spent trying to analyze that and their own rigs. Now, off the Southern Spars website, and Stingray pointed this out to me. Thank you, Stingray. I was trying to decide what other boats had their rigs built by Southern Spars in New Zealand.
Uh-huh.
So you Kiwis down there probably all know this. Red Bull, Alinghi Red Bull Racing's rig was built by Southern Spars, owned by North Sails down in New Zealand. Guess who else's was built by Southern Spars? For sure, Luna Rossa Prata Pirellis.
Oh, my.
So they've got to be a little nervous, right?
Right.
For sure, Orient Express, or so I'm reliably informed, their rig as well.
Yeah.
The question is, was the Kiwis also built? Did Emirates Team New Zealand's rig get built? Their picture, these 4 pictures I pulled off the Southern Spars website, who were celebrating their connection to and involvement with the AC-75s and the America's Cup. So J. Frederick Bland is asking, what about American Magic? Well, then the next picture, the 5th picture, is an American Magic boat, but it is an AC-40. Because it turns out Southern Spars, well, it turns out we knew this, but we'd forgotten it. AC-40 this is again from the Southern Spars website. AC-40 is a one design class, meaning that every element of each yacht is identical, including their 18-meter rotating Southern Spars masts. The class was conceived and designed by our close partners at Emirates Team New Zealand. Mm-hmm. It has been a pleasure to collaborate on this historic project, which will have wide ripples beyond, they hope, beyond 2024. I have my doubts. With an international race circuit planned beyond the Cup in the AC-40s. And finally, the last comment from Southern Spars on their website is, America's Cup programs are incredibly rigorous. Even before the first starting gun sounds, the teams rely on the unshakable reliability of Southern Spars and colleagues from our group to deliver for the pinnacle of our sport.
Amen.
So, Commodore Wedekind,
yes.
Coach Emmett, oops, yeah, J. Frederick Bland is saying, oops,
Yep.
I will show you the video again, and then we'll have a full and frank discussion, and I may even stop it when we get to the critical point. See, there were other boats out there. I'm going to stop it. And I'm going to go frame by frame here. You know, the sea is not anything to write home about. The breeze is, again, as both Matt said, and also as was Magnus the Magnificent also in his article about which he went on and on about how magnificent the Swiss were to recover, and they're a young team and they're full of vim and vigor. And he's right, they are. But I guarantee you it's a major setback, as you will see here. Now watch the gap. There's a little bit of daylight that appears at the bottom, in the kind of the bottom 1/4 of the rig. When the bent mast starts to cause and it starts to go forward like it's going to fail from compression loading. And see that gaposis there?
Yeah.
You can see the mast is now failing. And you can talk about Cunningham and you can talk about this and that and the other thing. I think the mast failed and from what I'm hearing from others who are much more knowledgeable than I.
Yep.
Jonathan Frank is saying, I appreciate you wanting to include me in the discussion because I said I'm being totally frank. No relation to Jonathan Frank. Look at that.
Yep.
See that? The gaposis as the lower part of that rig is collapsing forward and then to the side.
Yes.
4-stage sag, and away it goes. Okay, shall I back that up? You want to see that in real time?
Oh, yes. Oh, ouch.
Luckily, nobody was hurt. Jonathan Shore is saying that's a pretty new mast. I don't know if it was 3 days old, Jonathan, but it was not that old. As Blake Middleton, as he's quoting Ted Turner, looks like a mast failure to me. And this is just the raw footage, the raw recon footage, which goes on here for another 30 seconds. So let's run it, cutting things away, assessing to be sure everybody's okay. Of course, you don't want to get further hurt, either your equipment or particularly the boat, in the recovery process.
Right.
Air bubble in the mast field, perhaps. Maybe the other teams have put more laminate, more layers, because the teams have to specify the laminate to the builder, and the builder has to, at least it has to be the minimum under the class rule. Peter Selwyn is quite sure that it's the Cunningham tension that is causing the compression load of the mast and the pre-bend. What else could be compressing the mast? Well, where's the mast stepped? Is it stepped on the deck or is it stepped below? I don't know. Good question. What about the, who knows? Julie Ahrens is saying, from the Red Bull view, lots of press is good press. Yeah, I think we said that a minute ago, Julie. Lots of design implications in this failure. It is difficult to see what really went wrong, and nobody will ever say, maybe. The mere fact that this has happened is a good thing because it will serve as a red flag for all of the teams, quite right. Everyone will be reevaluating the rigging. It will be analyzed from every viewpoint on all of the computers and beyond. There will be a lot of engineers looking at every aspect of the compression failure. And David James agreeing it's lucky nobody was hurt. Always putting people in the water. Whenever people go in the water, it is dicey.
Yep.
And Ed Worley saying, yeah, the mast ball is on the deck. So I have a comment here that showed up this morning on my Facebook page from a blast from the past, Lisa Freed. I haven't heard from her in a long time. And she said the Moet Cup, something like 1982, bottom line, she was saying, Turner was uncourageous and snaps his mast. He's not happy. Back to the docks, and reporters are trying to interview him. This is actually in 1980. Reporters are trying to interview him, asking what happened. And in that classic drawl, he looks them dead in the eye and he said, "Don't you know the mast broke?" End of the interview. Yeah, the load cell data will be interesting, Clark Chapin, and a lot of other things, as Julie Ahrens was saying. That's from the 1980 Defender trials, and Ted was distracted. He won the Cup in 77, came back with courageous, tried to win the Defender trials again, but he was distracted by having started CNN, et cetera, et cetera. And Joe Cool, I think I'm on your side, Joe. Too much discussion, poor lamination, design, and structure, tension. Yeah, maybe. Stingray saying Dalton visiting Southern Spires in Auckland. Quote, "Oh, that one came out bad. Who should we send it to?" Flips a coin, flips it again, it came up Ernesto.
Oh, Stingray, that's sad.
Stingray. That's right up there with Graham Sweeney's comment. John, your reaction.
I was just going to say there's lots of people who are far more expert than me. I mean, my sort of day-to-day is looking at grassroots sailing. The AC for me gets really interesting when the racing starts, but I do feel very sorry for them.
Yeah, I think everybody does. Julia, final word to you.
Oh, never a dull moment.
That is true. Well, this is, I'm sure, has got everybody's attention, as several of the comments have said, whether it turns out to be them not easing the Cunningham or they couldn't ease the Cunningham, or whether, I mean, regardless, even if you screw up the main sheet in the Cunningham, the thing should not come apart.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, the famous quote from John Coleus back in the 83 Cup, 87 Cup, you got to build these just strong enough so they fail the minute you go across the finish line. Not before.
Not before.
And if they manage to last, I tell you what, our trimaran, this boat behind me, John, as you know, that mast was mounted on a swivel on a ball on the center frame, and that thing froze up in the last race. And had that race gone on much longer, the ball joint on the base, nobody knows this.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've talked about it on the show, but the ball joint at the base of that mast was literally frozen up, and I think the rig probably would have come down like your car engine when you run out of oil.
But for me, that wasn't a very interesting race where you have one boat that's clearly faster than the other. I felt very sorry for the commentators, really.
I thought it was fantastic, John. That was my that evened my record. I was 5 wins, 5 losses after that, and then after winning, our team did in 2013. I now claim 6 wins and 5 losses. I thought this was pretty cool.
What I hope for in the AC is lots and lots of close racing, and I do see match racing tactics, even though it's not the same as water pusher match racing tactics. I do see it, and I hope it will be, so exciting that maybe non-sailors and patriotic people get involved, even though there's only a few countries. But yeah, I don't want people's races influenced by masts falling down or what was it, basking sharks.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, but I think you're going to see boundary sailing. Go to the boundaries, come back together, cross, go to the other boundary, because the cost of tacking, or a maneuver, as they say in Sail GP. The cost of maneuvering. Well, what the rest of us would say tacking or jiving. If you're just joining us, Jon Emmett is with us. He is live via, well, it turns out Zoom, because we couldn't get the Skype working. And we're delighted.
The camera refused to look at me on Skype.
Well, your camera was, nonetheless, we're delighted to have you with us. And our next video is the monthly report from, we're still in America's Cup AC 37. We're an hour and 40 minutes into this show. But this is from Terry Hutchinson and New York Yacht Club's American Magic, their monthly report.
So it's full steam ahead here in Barcelona, Spain. The month of June is going to provide for us a great opportunity to continue to learn about Patriot and her evolution. As a team, we're really focused right now on doing all of our development in race course style testing. So what that means is that we set up somewhere between 2 and 2.5 miles with some boundary width somewhere between 0.8 and 0.9. Depending on the wind conditions and the sea state, and we put Patriot through her paces. It's been exciting because the the other happenings that are going on is that we have the other 4 challengers out on the water here with us, and so we are not allowed to test or sail with another boat in a coordinated manner, but inevitably all the boats end up together, and it's exciting to see really the true performance of these boats, and it's impressive the evolution of this boat from its predecessor. You know, in AC-36 we built 2 AC-75s, so this is our 3rd generation yacht inside this design space and rule, and the evolution and truly the performance of the boat over the previous fleet has gone leaps and bounds beyond just 1 generation of the rule. In an American Magic perspective, it's very exciting to have the boat out doing the laps in the manner that we are, but really learning and developing the boat in the manner that we need to. I can say with all due respect to the timeline and the calendar, we can always use more time, but how the team is preparing and how we're working towards developing a fast boat is going well day in and day out. At the beginning of the month, we were fortunate to have team principals Hap Fouth and Doug DeVos on site here with us. And as always, they bring a unique perspective and lens to the happenings here in Barcelona. Certainly the highlights were to have Doug and Maria DeVos on board Patriot. You know, the recorded best tack of the day was Doug coming out on starboard tack with a nice press on it, and away she went. So the other side of the American Magic team that has been put into action is the hospitality area behind me here. And this side of it is going to be an incredible venue to watch the America's Cup, to come and be a part of American Magic, and to come really feel what the competition is like. You know, we've gone to great lengths to make sure that the area is good for our supporters and our team members and our families, and the team here has done an incredible job setting up a nice area to view the racing and feel a part of the America's Cup.
That's for you, Stingray. You wanted to get an invite to their, didn't he say? Was that a comment from Stingray?
Yeah, it was.
I want an invite into their, he's seen that.
Lounge.
There was a separate video of that lounge. I haven't run it because it's, you know, it's kind
It's
of
impressive.
Oh, it is very impressive. I don't know if there's aircon though.
It's breeze. You're
yeah,
sailors.
Julia, I'll tell you what, having lived for almost 10 years in Valencia, which is right next door to Barcelona, it's bloody hot. So I hope it's not too hot in that tent, which they're beautiful, otherwise beautiful hospitality center. Let's do one more thing here, and that is to give you an update on the ship. The fruit boat, as Stingray calls it, Baltic Spring, has exited. In fact, they exited the Panama Canal Saturday, the 8th of June, last Saturday, and are headed. They've already passed the DR and so on, and they're in the middle of the Atlantic, and are in the last 24 hours. That was their position in the North Atlantic, and they are expected to be in Tarragona, which is the port right next door to Barcelona. Their ETA is indeed on the 19th. They'd hoped to be there on the 20th. It looks like they're there a day ahead of time. Bravo Zulu to their logistician, because they got through the canal without having to wait in the queue.
Yes.
They seem to be on time, and they should be sailing by the 1st of July, which has been their goal. So there is their ETA, 19th of June. And thank you to Stingray up in Seattle for helping me with that info. Julia?
Sir?
How are you doing with your book report?
I'm not.
I have not had time either, so both of us, but everyone who has read this book is saying seriously good things about it.
Absolutely, and I'm sure it will be. I said I did one of these things to just get a look at it, but
I have to admit, to be Jonathan Frank, I've not done much more than that either.
But I love to delve into his prose. So,
John, you're an author. Do you have this book yet?
I know. I knew you were going to ask me that. I haven't. I'm sorry.
You better get. You better trade with Magnus the Magnificent. Send him one of your new Ilka books for
I don't
one
think
of
he'd be
his.
that interested in an Ilka book, to be honest. It'd be a very good exchange from my end, but you never know.
Well, we have it here on the
He
back
did go out in
table.
an Ilka in Kells, though.
Say again?
He did go out in an Ilka in Kells, though, once. I think I remember trying to persuade you and him to do a Masters event.
You did. And
Obviously didn't succeed, though.
well, you didn't succeed with me. Maybe you can get him to do it. I'm too old, and my back is suspect at this point, having had 2 major back operations. And I think I don't want to aggravate it further. And I know that hanging my toes under, as you would call them, kicking straps, hiking straps, as we would call them. What do you call them? Kicking straps, the
Toe
bang.
straps.
What do you call them?
Toe strap. You put your toes under the toe strap.
Toe
That's
strap.
very-
Okay.
Strap.
Hiking straps to us, right, Julia?
Not me.
Yeah, hiking strap. It's all right.
Okay. Get Magnus's book.
Yes.
There is no second. It's available at wherever finer books are sold, including Amazon, and it's right back here on our back table as well. And we're delighted to have that, and many of you also have it, and we'll keep having a read.
Stingray asked an interesting question. Did Magnus explain how America cheated in that race?
Yes, I read.
And
I read
got
that.
away with it, and
I
nobody
read-
actually cared for
I
20
read
years.
through that. They didn't cheat, Julia.
Oh,
John, they didn't cheat, right?
I haven't read it.
I went through that section because I'm particularly sensitive about it. Because look, New York didn't cheat. There was a discrepancy in the sailing instructions. What in those days was
yeah.
was the sailing instructions.
Go around to the right.
Well, no, everybody went the same way around the island, which is the opposite of the way they're going around the island tomorrow.
Yeah.
They went around, which is the more difficult way to go around the island because you got the whole back of the island, south side of the island, you're going uphill normally,
Yeah.
westerly, right? When you go clockwise, John, around the island. But as Ed Worley said, the Americans had a British pilot on board. The pilot looked at the sailing instructions. You don't have to round the Nab Light ship. You can go inside that and it'll be fine. And they did. Mm-hmm. And they were still way behind. They caught up on the beat across the back of the island, so to speak. Joe Cool, I know it's hard to accept. The AC is going in the right directions thanks to GP 50s. He's a foiling. And we're going to talk a little more with John about foiling, but let's, before we get into the last leg, I want to ask you, John, a question. I've got questions from viewers from FOSI, and maybe this is the key question. With the current single-handed Olympic class, the Ilka sitting in the questioner asserts, in an ever precarious position as media-led foiling boats become increasingly popular. Where do you see the future of the Ilka going? Do you think the Ilka can survive the non-Olympic price drop? Do you see Ilka sailors moving into the selected foiling class or classes? And finally, due to the already inflated cost of a foiling boat compared to the Ilka, if they do broom the Ilka, which is bound to increase once Olympic selection is attained for those foiling boats, as history tells us, all boats are.
Wow. Was that 5 questions?
That's
or was
one
that just a
question. That's one
or was
question.
that just a statement?
It was
There's a lot of
that. It
assumptions
was that
there.
too, and I did not write that.
Okay. I mean, I don't think the Ilka's precarious at all at the moment because the way the voting works, the voting is by M&As, and the Ilka. That's my name spelt wrong. The way the
it is. Julia, bang on the
Did I get
graphics,
distracted?
bang on the control room door, and say, "Whoever."
I'll just go and get John. He's in the next room.
Well, if we'd had a tech check, John, if we'd had a tech check,
No,
you would have
I'm
caught that.
I'm not really trying to avoid the question. So at the moment, I don't see the Ilka as precarious at all because the way the voting works, countries will vote for classes that they can campaign in, classes they like. So the Ilka is the one class that nearly any M&A could potentially have a sailor at the Olympic Games. And actually, that's where the Emerging Nations program and all the rest of it works really well. So you give sailors a chance to get to the Olympics, and it's a really good fit. Having said that, if you wind forward, I'm an engineer at heart, so that's how I think. If you wind forward 100 years, well, of course the Ilka's not going to be an Olympic class anymore. I mean, just, nothing changes. Everything changes.
Okay,
the price
fair
of bread,
enough. Fair enough.
The price of bread 20 years ago and the price of bread now, it's a huge difference.
Especially in this country.
What it looks like is I'm really careful what I say. I was scared we are going to go down a political topic at the beginning of the show, but how that changeover looks and how it's handled. So for me, I think when that change does happen, it needs to be already viable. So you change to a class that is established, and I mean established, in 50 countries or something. So I don't see that happening soon. One of the questions I was expecting...
I'm going to may I stop you there? Say that one more time, because that is crucial. That they stop inventing classes out of whole cloth and putting them into the Olympics.
It's got to be accessible.
Pick classes that are well established and are well distributed, which is what the World Sailing Rules say, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to make it accessible. And that means that everybody has, as far as possible, a level playing field. And the Ilka does that. If I go to do my club race, we've got plenty of foilers now who do like twice as many laps as me. But the largest fleet is Ilka because it's one design. You buy it off the shelf. Of course, you can spend money having newer sails than everyone else, but it's the same boat. If you go down a design boat like a Solo or whatever, people have got slightly different masts, slightly different sails, and and there's that wiggle room. But for Olympic sailing, I mean, the Ilka fills that spot. But of course, you need to have the pinnacle of sailing. So say, for me, my gut reaction, 50-50 foiling Olympic class is 50-50 water pushers seems about right. I think one of the things people don't realize is the average weight has probably gradually crept up with all the classes, with the only lightweight left now being the 470 helm, which could be a man or a woman. But if you look at RSX to IQ foil, that's a huge jump in weight, both men and women. And the kite surfers, again, it's really rewarding big people, which is hardest for some of the Asian nations. But I think you just need to have a sort of step back and realize you just can't please everyone all the time. And if people don't agree with you, it doesn't mean they're not listening. It's just there isn't a perfect fit. And I would say, when we were talking about Olympic classes, I mean, the star's going from strength to strength, isn't it? It's not the be all and end all.
Question, and this is following up on what Clark Chapin has just commented. Should the Olympics reflect what goes on in our sport, or should it be a made-for-television event?
So that, for me, that's two questions. So yes and no. So there's got to be an element which is like what you race at home, which is the Ilkas, but also it should represent the pinnacle. So it's like you have kite surfing in the Olympic Games, but the sort of more club level version, recreational version is winging, and they both definitely have a place in our sport. So the NACRA is a much more, for lack of a better word, advanced catamaran than what people may be sailing at a club level, but it also reflects what we do. And then, the AC, much as, I know people like sails that come up and down and all the rest of it, that really is the design element of our sport. But yeah, I think that's two questions. Does that answer the first bit?
Yep.
Like you need to have both. It needs to be relatable and accessible.
I mean, I largely agree with you, as you know. I'm just concerned that the America's Cup has become so far away from what we've had this discussion 100 times on here. So it's so far away from what we do, what 95% of the sailors. Likewise, if the Olympic...
I think we should just enjoy the AC for what it is, and enjoy the match racing circuit for what it is, and enjoy the Sail GP sailing.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But if we want more people to watch, I don't think, and it's like the Olympics, having foiling boats per se is not going. I mean, as David James and others have pointed out here, when was the last time, except for the Irish sailing commentator? When I ran that video,
That's really watched, isn't it?
that was really watched. When I ran that video, we got banned by YouTube. That show got taken down by YouTube because it's owned by.
As much as they took it down, it got posted back up and then got even more views.
Yeah, well, exactly.
So we never know how many.
But the reason is that the IOC is so upset about that video. The IOC bought the rights.
Oh.
And now anytime anybody tries to use it, the IOC, it wasn't a copyright strike from the guy that produced the video or the commentator. It was a strike
I didn't know
against us from the IOC because they don't want that thing out there. In any event, we've only got a couple minutes left here, and we can debate this till the proverbial cows come home. But
I would say people are much happier when they have a sense of humour.
Yeah.
Full stop. It's a good way of getting through life. But in terms of the media, I'm still biased to the sailor. And the most important thing for me is the person who sails the best wins the week.
Yeah.
Because they may have spent 12 years getting to that point. And I'm not a big fan of a winner takes it all race for that reason, specifically at the Olympics. I think for SoGP, it's fine. And I think we need to make the media better.
What about the medal
really
race as it now stands? What about the current format?
The simple answer to that, I'm not a huge fan, but it's here. Live with it. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's like the coach's corner I won't waste my time thinking about things which are beyond my control.
Well, but John, you're an influencer. You are influential. We probably even to a lesser degree, but to some degree are influential. And all the Fozy on here, people do watch this and do take note. They may run fast the other way because there's a bunch of old farts over there. There's Tom and Julia at in their dotage, which we are.
I was gonna say coaching the Fozies it sometimes feels like herding cats, but I didn't want to make myself unpopular. But we are a very diverse group, and that should be absolutely celebrated.
Yes,
and broadly based and interested in our beloved sport, in promoting and doing what's right for the sport. We're never going to agree on what's best, but get rid of the medal race, would you, John?
I have no power to do that. In fact, what I do have power as a coach is to train my sailors to sail as well as they can in a medal race.
Well, you have no choice but to do that.
Yeah, that's it. If you want like a sort of final thought or a wrap up, for me, it's really clear that the future of our sport is the youth sailors, because we're not going to be here forever. It's the people who are 10, 15, 20 years old. The future is the youth sailors. That's the continuity of the sport.
Completely.
So it doesn't matter what you do, whether you encourage a optimist or a topper or a terror, or you encourage a fever or a mara or a cadet, but go down to your club and try and help young people get on the water. I'm not that bothered about whether the people who've been sailing for 20 years have got their new boat or not their new boat. We've got them. They're in the sport for life. Don't tell the young girl she has to sail a Mero if she wants to sail an IQ foil. Just be pleased they're going out on the water.
Yeah, fair enough.
If they want to go for a swim after.
Fair enough. But here's the perceived problem, and that was a nice segue into what is really the final question from the Fozy here. Kids don't seem to be taking up foiling at the clubs. You see precious little foiling at clubs. And no kids, no sailing future. I think we all agree on that. And if we're told that foiling is the future, when it clearly for club sailing, for the big picture, when it clearly is not, and youth sailing is where the future lies, how do we reconcile foiling in the Olympics and that aspirational sailing with sailing at the club level?
The problem is, Tom, that is just such a leading question.
Well, of course.
Because I just don't.
I'm paid to ask leading questions. Julia will give.
I don't agree.
Julia will give me she'll give me a tip, a bonus.
Okay.
Seriously, how do you reconcile that?
Well, the first is, and it's venue specific. Okay, foiling is not appropriate when you've got a 4-acre pond to go sailing in.
Yeah.
That's when you sail a topper. But the situation in Portland, I regularly see more foilers than non-foilers. You know, you look at there's 12 wasps out quite regularly. No problem. And that's part of the venue and the IQ foil program. And they make the 49ers look slow. But you can't go into a us and them attitude, or it's just so unhealthy. It used to be a little bit like that with windsurfers. I seem to remember sort of 20, 30 years ago.
Quite the contrary. And that's a really, I mean, I grew up with that. I helped put the windsurfers in the Olympics in 84, and we had both an Olympic event and a demonstration event because the U.S. and Europe couldn't agree on the windsurfer or the wind glide. Quite the contrary. The windsurfer became a hit off the beach, at clubs, at resorts, all over the place, and people said, oh, look at everybody's doing this, let's put it in the Olympics. Not everybody is doing kite surfing. In fact, this week, our club, Julia, as you will have seen in your mail, this week, our club, St. Francis, over here, announced the first ever, and they're hosting the first ever U.S. wing foiling, not kite foiling, wing foiling championship right out here in the wind and sea of San Francisco Bay, because that's way more popular than kiting. Way more.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the entry to the sport. I mean, far more people sail wasps than sail moths. I mean, it's the same whichever way you look at it. I mean, to be real extreme, far more people sail Optimist than AC 75s. But I don't quite understand what the problem, like any sort of people getting on the water.
I'm putting you on a bit.
Encouraged.
I agree. We want to get people on the water, and if there are kids that want to go sail moths, if there are kids,
I mean, we race together. Like the foiling windsurfers join in our club race, so we have literally everything from an Optimist to the IQ foil.
yeah, and you, Great Britain is perhaps unique in that respect that you use the Portsmouth number system or some other handicapping system. Everybody goes out on Lake St. Mary's or whatever it's called, or wherever your pond or reservoir or river, and go yacht racing together. And that's admirable.
I mean, I just think more is better, Tom.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
If somebody chooses to go foiling rather than sail their topper, you know, they want to go in a wasp rather than a topper, that's fine.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Or a switch. Aren't you sailing switches now?
Well, switch is something Lily's been looking at as a middle ground. So it's much higher performance than a wasp. So don't quote me on this, but you're probably foiling in 8-9 knots rather than 12-13. And it's a one design boat. And whether that's a really good one design boat or not, but it's one design. So everybody will be sailing the same out of box, as opposed to Moth, which is incredibly high performance. But the expense and the goalpost is always moving up and up and up. And no doubt there's always going to be new designs. I mean, I remember with the Moth before it was foiling. The lowriders looked pretty extreme to me, considering at one point they were the Europe dinghy.
So may I ask you a final question?
Yeah.
The switch is on. Is that the you like that?
Flick the switch.
Flick the switch. The switch is on. You're too young, and Julia's too polite to remember that there was a porn movie called The Switch Is On.
I just sorry I missed it.
I'll ask Simon. But
Pedro Foiling Sailor says, Tom, this is what I'm promoting in my retirement as well, and Peter is. And the key is, I think Clark is right, we're in violent agreement. The key is to get everybody on the water. We can get on the water, and if some people want to go out in foiling boats, great. But let's don't ruin our club sailing, kind of the non-Olympic, non-professional, non-high-end sailing by pushing foiling on everybody at the club level when clearly most people are not going to do it.
The kids I know are definitely not being pushed. They're definitely pushing their parents to take them foiling. So if anyone says that youth sailors aren't interested in foiling, I've got quite a few I can introduce them to. And, you know, people will do both. People will be campaigning an Ilka-4 and a wasp.
Well, we'll keep talking about it. And Jody Shields points out another problem, which is, I think, we also should be aware of, cognizant of, and help fix. I can confirm it. Jody is saying there's a huge uptake of people taking up wing foiling here on the lake there in Wanji, and it's all recreational. No clubs have them as a division. That's the problem.
Why is that a problem?
Well, because they're not part of the infrastructure. They're not part of the formality. They're not getting involved in the clubs.
But
yeah,
they are in their
hopefully
own.
that's something that needs to change.
Absolutely.
But when people ask a question with a predetermined assumption, that's really, something that we need to get away from.
Oh, John, we never do that on this show.
The question you just read out, you don't like foiling or whatever.
Yeah, you can probably guess. You can probably guess who that question came from.
Of course.
You can take it up with him after the show.
Well, I probably can't actually.
Okay.
But the question should always be reframed. How do we get more whatever sailing at our club? It's really simple. But for me, part of the key is the youth.
Yeah, and
the average age of the sailing club doesn't go up by 1 year each year.
And Clark Chapin has just brought up something which I think is all really true.
Yeah,
they went to sail, not race. And
good point, Julia.
And I think it's much more fun to sail than it is to race.
You're a cruiser. Julia's just cruising through life. She's been cruising through life with a cocktail, and although she says she never drank on the boat.
No,
cruising through life.
Yeah.
People can do what they want.
Yeah.
It's fun. We have sail for all Saturday afternoons, or you can come and race. Crikey, if you join Weymouth Sailing Club, you can race 7 days a week now, I think.
I tell you what, if my poor old back will sustain it, I really want to go. I want to try a wing foil. I want to go off Crissy Beach. God, strike me down if I'm lying. I'd really like to go try that, just to say, not to say that I've tried it, but I want to try it. I'm interested. And and remember, it's not too long ago that catamarans were treated by New York Yacht Club and by people in Long Island Sound as, it was just catamarans were anathema. Catamarans were weird and strange and shouldn't be a part of the traditional yachting scene. So I think we're in violent agreement. I think Clark is right. And with that, I'm going to move on. Alan Long's disagreeing with you, Julia.
And so do most people, I'm sure.
No, they don't. I think.
But I wanted to say, Tom, I hesitate to use this word, but most of the top sailors, they do all three. They do Olympic classes, they go foiling, and they sail big boats. Literally the same people,
I didn't know where he was going with most of them do all three, Julia. I thought that was going to get a finger wag for something else.
Never mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
We carry on here for the last leg. Excuse my throat here. I need a last drink of my coffee, because we got a cool segment here. Speaking of the Round the Island race, not the one in Newport, Rhode Island that took place today around Connecticut Island, but they have the Round the Island race hosted for 90 years, more than, by the Island Sailing Club, and which, if they're lucky, will take place tomorrow. Why, if they're lucky? Because they got breeze on. The Round the Island race, the 15th of June, takes place tomorrow. They go anti-clockwise, as you Brits would say, you in the Commonwealth, counterclockwise, as we would say. It first was raced in 1931. There are now 939 entries for this year's event.
Wow.
However, they've already this afternoon, because the weather predictions is for 30 plus, and it's going to be bouncy. It's going to be blowing all night. So they've canceled a bunch of the classes, but they're going counterclockwise, as they do, not the way the America's Cup, which went clockwise around the Isle of Wight back in 1851. They're going anti-clockwise, same way John apparently did it in his laser, from Cowes out to the Needles and down around St. Catharines and then out around the Bembridge Ledge and so on. So that's the plan, and they're still apparently going to start some of the classes. These are boats that are 5 to 25 ton. I mean, they're middle-sized big boats, offshore boats. They're not, there's, I don't think, any maxis or anything. In fact, the race was started really in a reaction to the Royal Yacht Squadron way back in the, as I said, in the 1930s. And in light of the anticipated strong winds for tomorrow, the Island Sailing Club put this out to all the media, me included, that, I'll skip to the last paragraph, Race Safety Officer Mark Southwell said, "We will only cancel fleets where there is a significant chance that the majority of the fleet could get into the majority. I like the standard, actually, the litmus test. Majority of the fleet could get into difficulties and risk injury to the crew, a situation that could quickly overwhelm the support services. So then they followed up with an announcement at 3 o'clock your time, John, this afternoon, 1500 today. And they've canceled these classes, the classic yacht, the classic yachts, the DM-24s, the gaffers, the J-70s, the Molly Hulls, and the sports boats. So they've been called off. How many foiling boats in that race, David James asks? Well, none. And that's, we can agree on that. That's not something you're probably going to race in this kind of a race. You might race it in a specialty foiling race around the island. But bravo Zulu to them. It's a big deal. It's been going on for a long time. We love such events. I also have a very warm spot in my heart for the Island Sailing Club, and where we have spent far too many hours over the many years. 2024 is the 93rd anniversary. They missed some years during the war, and maybe they missed a year during COVID, I'm not sure, but during the war years anyway. And the 87th edition is to take place tomorrow, sponsored by these fine organizations, and bravo Zulu to them all. Hope it's a good, safe race. And are there any other, I don't see any other comments on all of that. There's lots of comments about the topic we covered, though, Julia, John. Blake Middleton saying, wow, 939 entries is amazing, even if the high winds knock the numbers down. Well, they're going to knock it down considerably.
Yeah.
Which gets us to Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. John, you stay for another couple minutes?
Yeah.
You may want to wag your finger or add to any of these. We're delighted to have WTF, as usual, submissions. Remember the submission we had on Tuesday that came from Joe Holtzman, beware of smartphone zombies? Mm-hmm. That came from Holtzman up in Colorado. Well, another one came in. I don't know if that inspired it. This came in from J. Frederick Bland. Learn to sail because zombies can't swim. John, I ran that because of you. It looks very much like a laser.
It is. It's a Mark I standard sail. Yeah.
And we now know why you sail Ilkas, because you're fleeing the zombies. Is that right?
I'm pretty sure zombies eat brains, so I wouldn't really have that much to worry about. But I've seen that one. I've seen that one do the rounds.
That came from Boomer. And then Julia, you'll like this one because I feel bad for people who you see driving around, even today, with a mask on while alone in the car. The new outdoors.
To be fair, Tom, sometimes I think that was medical workers who had to do an awful lot of stops.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
I know plenty of medical workers because my whole street was full of them.
No, it wasn't. I did it too. I get out of Walgreens I did it too. You'd get out of the Safeway where someplace we're back, where you had to do this 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And you'd get into the car and you got your phone and you got your keys and you turn on. And I'm only driving a couple blocks and I realize I got the bloody mask on. I feel like a crouton. Medical workers, nothing. The seatbelt, the new outdoor seatbelt is available from Ted Ryman.
I remember when the seatbelt came out, you can see the videos on YouTube, the number of people who felt it went against their civil liberties and it was uncomfortable. And the same with the bicycle helmet and all the things. So I don't know. I still think it's a bit of a strange one.
Well, we're not going to, what is it? It's 2 hours and 14, almost 2 hours 15 into this show. I don't think we'll take up that civil liberties discussion today. Will we, Julia?
Nope.
Here's another one. This one from John Sangmeister. I see Bing Bong is on here, his son.
Yeah.
Dear Facebook, please stop suggesting people I may know. I do know them. I don't like them. And that's okay. For me, I have 5,000. I'm up against the 5,000 limit, and every now and then I'll go through and delete people, kill people, some of whom have passed away, some of whom I don't like.
Yes.
Why is that person?
They passed away before you delete them.
They passed away before I delete them. Yeah.
As opposed to you delete them
Yeah.
and get rid of them.
So, yeah, John is good. He's driving the Fozy into overtime here. So, in any event, I thought that was good. Thanks, John Sangmeister, for that, which gets us to the finish line. And at this stage, we'll let John say it today instead of Julia, because he likes to say it in his videos.
Just remember to like, follow, and share. And comments always welcome in replay. And personally, I'll try and go back and look through them.
Right, Julia?
Always.
He did that well.
He did.
Yeah, and it is important to go back and look. We got so many great comments, and that's the whole fun of doing this. I don't know about for you, John, but for us, Clark Chapin.
The live show is definitely best for me. I've actually quite enjoyed it on a Friday evening as a drive time when I've got a long trip to do and you guys all keep me company.
Mm-hmm.
But actually being able to interact live is really the best thing about the show.
Well, I hope you're listening to it, not watching it while you're driving.
Yes.
On the dashboard.
I'm resisting the urge to pull over and comment.
Rick Bannerow says, happy flag to everyone and follow, share, and Fozy. Yeah, indeed. And we appreciate so much those of you who do give us a few bucks a month to keep us on the air, keep our studio going, to keep so we can have a Zoom or a Skype to bring in people like John. Maura Stevens says, another great show. Thanks to everyone. I hope you have a great weekend. And she is also saying happy Father's Day, because that, for most of us, not everybody though.
I've been meaning to say that too.
Not everybody is celebrating Father's Day on Sunday, but we're also celebrating the people who give us audio, video, and images for these shows. Julia, do you want to wish everybody happy Father's Day?
Yes. For all the fathers, we'll congratulate you for all your traumas and great joy.
John, your dad has passed away.
Yeah, it was one of the big sadness. He never saw Lily's golden medal or our marriage, but
did he know? Did he know Lily?
My last ever words to him, we flew in after the World Championships to Gatwick, and my last ever words were, "I love you very much, and I've got to go and help the little Chinese girl." I don't know why I said little, because she's definitely taller than me.
Oh, is that right?
And he had motor neurons, so by that stage I couldn't understand what he was saying anymore, but he seemed very supportive. And then I drove up to do a UK laser class committee meeting, and he passed away.
Oh dear. Well,
so
you'll remember him. My dad's still alive. Julie, yours is gone. Your mom's gone, but I lost my mom. But I think on Father's Day and Mother's Day we think of our parents anyway.
Absolutely.
Both, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my beloved father, who was a great sailor, good friend of Clark Chapin's and Joe Holtzman and the others from our home club, and invented the 720 rule.
Yes.
Dick Rose gives him credit for pushing that forward, and I will celebrate him on Sunday. Give him a call and see him in a couple weeks. The other thing is to mention is that not everybody celebrates Father's Day on Sunday. The Brits do, but the Aussies and the Kiwis, for example, celebrate it in September. I think the first Sunday or something in September. The Catholic countries in Europe celebrate it in March, I think, from memory, when we lived over there. Fritz Mueller says his dad passed away 42 years ago yesterday.
Wow.
So whether they're with us or with us in memory, we will be thinking about all of them. And I know more than no less than anybody, because at our home club, Portage Yacht Club, the Father's Day brunch on Sunday has been a big deal. You can do you can clean the garage or work in the garden or mow the lawn, paint the house, or you can join us for Portage Yacht Club's 2024 Father's Day brunch. Which, of course, is Sunday, and we'll not be there for that, but I wish we were. I always remember that very fondly. To all of you, wherever in the world you are, happy Father's Day. If you're celebrating, and if not, happy Father's Day anyway. John, last word to you.
Go down to your local sailing club and do something positive to get more people on the water, especially young people.
Good point. Julia?
As always, I'm just thrilled to be in this company. So,
well, as I said on Tuesday's show, I'm just thrilled to wake up in the morning. Oh my God, I'm still alive at my advanced stage. John, thank you very much indeed. Julia,
welcome.
Thank you. We'll see you. We hope all of you have a great rest of your weekend. If you are celebrating Father's Day, please have a great Father's Day. We'll see you next Tuesday, same time, same channel, 1300 Pacific. In the meantime, if you can, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.